What's going on, guys? Today we're going to go over how to catch snook all year round in Southeast Florida. Going over tips, tricks, gear, and ways to fish for these snook in Southeast Florida on this video, alright? So we're going to start off with gear. And before we start off with all that, I want to talk about when we catch snook in Southeast Florida. So you're going to start seeing snook around the beaches, the inlets, closer in to the surf at around May. Early May, you have that early mullet run come through, that some people call it the off-brand mullet run. It comes through early May, and you'll see on the beaches in early May and around the inlets, there'll be small pods of mullet. And on those mullet pods, you'll have large overfeeding, oversized snook feeding on those mullet pods. And that's going to start in, like I said, early May. As we move on into late May, June, July, August, early September, you have pilchard. The mullet schools will move on further down, or further up rather, and the pilchard schools will come down, and they will stay. And in the summer, mornings and evenings, you will find large pilchard schools surrounding the beach and snook underneath those pilchard schools feeding. And those are going to be the snook during the spawn. The snook spawn is in the summer months. So the snook, there you'll see a lot of smaller snooks from the 18-inch to 25-inch range, and then you'll also see fewer larger snook that are going to be 30 inches plus, and that's in the summer months. Then finally you have the fall months moving into winter, from late September to late November, or early to late November is the main mullet run, and there you will find the biggest snooks of the season. You'll find the 40 inches plus. You will rarely catch any fish under 22 inches during this time. Okay, so that's going to be your times when you catch snook from late November, December until March, April. You'll find very little snook on the beaches and the inlets. You're going to find them more located inshore on bridges, docks, pilings, everything like that, in the warmer water. Okay, so first off, we're going to go over gear. So we're going to start off in that timeline in May, early May, fishing for those mullet. I have two setups I use. My main mullet run setup, if we consider fall and March, is this guy right here. Penn Fierce 3 6000 size reel on the Penn Fierce 3 9-foot rod. This rod is 9 foot, moderate fast, 20 to 50 pound braid, 1 to 3 ounce lure. Okay. This reel, spooled 25 pound braid, has plenty of drag. I believe it has 22 pounds of drag on this reel. And the reason I fish a 9-foot rod is because of the bait I'm using. When I use mullet, I do not use the cast net. I go on the beach with a snag rig. It is pretty much a weighted treble hook. I throw it into the mullet pod, feel the thump of a mullet, and I set that hook. I get my mullet in, and if you've ever snagged mullet, you can snag a mullet 12 inches long, so you really need that 9-footer to cast out, and you need that backbone to bring those mullet in. So that's one reason I use the 9-footer. Another reason I use that 9-footer is because sometimes those mullet pods are going to be far off the beach, 20, 30 yards off the beach. You're not going to be able to cast to them with a smaller pole, a 7-foot pole. So you need that casting distance. I also use a 6,000 size reel because when you're fishing these mullet pods, there's always that chance and probability that you will hook tarpon or you will hook big jack. So you want to have a reel that's sized large enough to handle those bigger tarpons, those bigger jacks. With snook, you don't really need a large reel, but bycatch is the main reason. Okay, that's my first combo for the May mullet run. Another combo I use pretty much most of the time is this guy right here, 7-foot Ugly Stick GX2, paired with the Penn Battle 3. It says 10-pound braid, and I've thrown live mullet on this as well. I would not tell people who have not used or been involved with a lot of light combo fishing to start off fishing the mullet run with this, because you need to be very careful. You can easily snap the rod, you can easily break lines if you don't have the drag set right or the rod loaded properly. I have caught 30-inch snook on this, 32-inch snook on this rod and reel combo. It's possible, it can be done, but I would just not recommend it to beginners. Definitely for people who are more advanced, trying to get more fun out of the fishing, I would gear it more towards this reel. For both of those rods, I do throw lures. I throw lures, if we're talking mullet run May, throw something like this. This is a Storm Shad 5-inch paddle tail, 1/2 ounce jig head there. I will also be throwing things like these. This is a white ounce bucktail jig. Works really well for the snook, especially when they're a little lazier. Or even you could throw something that looks more like a mullet. This is a mullet jerk shad, 1 ounce jig head on there. Caught a lot of snook on these. And you can also do something like this. This is a Castmaster, 1 ounce Castmaster. This looks like a fleeing mullet or an injured mullet fluttering down. The snook will eat that instantly. When I fish with the mullet, I fish them 2 ways. I will either fish them weighted or free-lined. Most of the time I'm free-lining mullet. During the March, May run, mullets are usually going to be a lot larger because it's pre-spawn. Post-spawn. So they've already spawned, so they're going to be a lot larger. So I use something like this. This is a 7.0 Mustad O'Shaughnessy J-hook. I'll hook my mullet in the back bottom tail. So if you picture the mullet is like this, here's the head, here's the tail. I'll hook it right through the bottom tail, like that. Alright, under that pelvic fin. It will cause it to swim down and away from me, and that's in the snook's area in the bottom where they're feeding. If I'm weighting my mullet, most of the time if I weight it, I'm going to use something like this. This is an egg sinker. This is a 2 ounce. I'll put that 2 ounce egg sinker directly next to my hook. So imagine my leader, my hook is here, this is my leader. That egg sinker is going to be sitting right there on my hook. Keep it compact, easy to throw, won't get spun up, and it keeps that mullet down, while not also impeding its swimming abilities. If there's a lot more current, I really don't want to weight my mullet down a lot, but I still need a little bit of weight to cast it. I'll use something like this, pinch weight, crimp weight, just crimp it right on my line to cast that mullet out. So that's going to be the March run. You're going to be snagging these mullet, putting them on either one of these combos, throwing them out, waiting for the bite, either free-lined or weighted. Now we move on to summertime. So summertime you have those mullet move out, you have croakers and pilchards replace them. So to target the croakers and pilchards, you need to throw a cast net. I would say throwing a 8-foot 1/4 inch mesh cast net is going to be your best bet at catching the croakers and pilchards. I have used smaller nets. I've used 5-footers that were 3/8 inch. If you use 3/8 inch mesh, you're going to be more likely gilling the pilchards. It will catch croaker fine, but pilchards will be gilled most of the time. So I would say gear more towards using 1/4 inch mesh so you can actually catch those pilchards and not really gill them all the time. The combo I use for pilchards is the Penn Battle 3 2500 with the 10-pound braid. I use 40-pound leader. During May, I will use between 40 and 60 pound. During summertime, it's strictly 40 pound. And I rig it to a 2.0 Eagle Claw J-hook. I do not weight my pilchards. If I need to, if there's a lot of current, I will use a jig head, a 1/4 ounce or a 1/2 ounce jig head. But that's it. I will always free line. During summertime, free lining I've found is more worth it than weighting, because a lot of times you have a lot more currents, and if you have it at egg weight, it will spin your bait. So yeah, use 40-pound leader, free line those pilchards. Pilchards I will normally hook in the nose or in the pelvic fin. Croakers will always hook in the pelvic fin, because croakers you want them to swim away from the trough and get into the snook strike zone instead of staying up on the beach where they want to be. With pilchards, they usually swim everywhere, so you just hook them in the nose. It gives you a better contact point and a better hookup ratio. Now as we move away from the summer months and we move into the mullet run, the actual mullet run in the fall, I will only use this 6,000 size reel with a 9-foot rod. A lot of times those early mullet run pods are going to be a lot farther offshore. Okay, you need that casting distance. You also need to understand that there's a lot more fish on there, a lot more big fish, a lot bigger snook, 45 inches. You have a lot of tarpon, 60-plus pound tarpon, a lot of big jacks, 25-pound plus jacks, and even blacktip shark and big bluefish. So you need to be capable of understanding that you're fishing that style, so you need heavier gear. I have fished that smaller reel during the mullet run. I would not recommend it. especially if you hook a big fish, you want that leverage, and especially when you're snagging those mullet. Again, I use that same size hook that I was talking about, the 7.0 Moscato chassis. Generally, I do not weight my mullet during the mullet run. I'm usually fishing a lot farther inshore than those mullet pods are so far out. If the mullet pod is super close crowded to the beach, I will fish with a weight. Like I said, the 2-ounce egg sinker right on top of the hook to keep that bait down, keep it in the strike zone of the snook and the jack and the tarpon. I do up it to 60-pound leader, just because of the chance of catching a tarpon is a lot greater, and that 60-pound will prevent chafing and breakoffs. So that's pretty much using live bait and dead bait throughout the entire year for catching snook. You will catch snook if you use those baits and use those tricks, and you just if you find the bait, you will find the fish. If you can, during the mullet run, if you can get a croaker, you are more likely to catch snook than by using mullet, just because it's something different to mix it up. But you will still catch plenty of snook on mullet. Now let's get away from the live bait perspective and let's move back onto lures. When I throw lures, if I'm throwing lures during the mullet run, okay, talking about fall, I'll always be throwing it on this combo. Okay, this is the same time I'll use for my live bait, the 6K. This throws 1 to 3 ounce lures. Mullet run, I'm generally throwing 2 things: big paddle tails or big bucktails. Okay, I have 2 ounce bucktails. I'm just going to show the 1 ounce, but I prefer that white. I'll throw a 2 ounce bucktail out, jig it off the bottom, catch a ton of fish. If I don't want to throw the bucktail, I'll throw an 8-inch or a 6-inch storm shad, or a larger paddle tail that's 1 ounce weighted or more. And you can even throw spoons. I've had a lot of luck on spoons during the mullet run just because there's so much action going on. There's so many fish around. If you throw that spoon, Castmaster, even a 2 ounce Castmaster or 2 ounce Hopkins spoon, let that thing sink, you'll catch a bunch of snook. If we go away from the fall mullet run and we move on to, the springtime mullet run in that May, I always throw lures and most of my baits on the 2500. During that time, I fish smaller baits. I'll fish something like this, 5-inch jerk shad mullet. I'll fish lighter jig heads as well, lighter bucktails, just because it's on a smaller setup. I'll still get tons of fish. I mostly don't use topwaters for snook, but during both mullet runs and the pilchard runs, find something like this in a bone color or white color, something that walks the dog. Snook love these things. If we move on to the summertime is almost strictly pilchards and croakers. So you want to throw something that resembles a pilchard and a croaker, something like that. DOA 3-inch with a 1/2 ounce jig head. That will catch you plenty of snook. I've hooked tarpon on that. I've hooked moonfish. I've hooked a bunch of stuff on those. If you're more of a hard bait person, you could always use a regular hard bait like this guy. It's a Yozuri with the green. Looks like a big pilchard. I don't prefer these, especially during the summer, because of the sargassum weed. These treble hooks, this whole bait will get covered in sargassum if there's even a little bit of seaweed, and it'll just get all built up. So pretty much that's all you need to know for catching snook. The times, again, I didn't bring this up, but your best time to catch snook, as in your best hours, is going to be early morning from sunrise till around 10:30, and then late evening from around 5:30 until sunset. Okay, guys, that's all you need to know for catching snook. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing, and I'll have a lot more content coming to you.